Hello, my Facebook family. I am excited to be on here tonight because in in an effort to be consistent with programming for this fall, I wanted to make sure that 5:30 ish that I'm online. And so thank you guys for joining me. I'm also sad, and it's we're going to talk about a little bit of that today. Tonight was not going to be SADtember when death interrupts, but there's some real stuff going on, and I just thought, in authenticity, I wanted to sort of talk about it. Thank you so much. Blessings to you, sis. And I'm glad you're on. And some of this is really therapeutic for me because I recently have been dealing with a number of deaths of family friends, and it has really been hard. And with COVID-19 in particular, there's been an astounding number of deaths of people who ordinarily you would just, think would be living long life forever, who are not sickly, who are not old, who are your own age. And even if you're not close to them, sometimes you do find yourself, interrupted by death. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit today, but I'm going to ask you, because we're not going to be on super long, I want to ask you to go ahead and share this to your Facebook page, share it to a group, or send it to a friend who may be dealing with mourning themselves, or maybe they have a friend who's mourning. I tell you that, like I said, I hope this is self-therapeutic, because sometimes when death comes, it comes as a shock, or let's just say often it comes as a shock. We rarely get the gift of notice. And I say the gift of notice because when someone is sick and they've been sick for a while and you get a prognosis, the backward blessing is that you get a sense of an idea that time is not on your side. So you get to show them love. You get to ask for forgiveness if that's needed. You get to sort of prepare yourself mentally that they're not going to be there with you. But when death interrupts, when it just comes out of the blue, it shakes often us to the core. And I don't know about you, but so many people are passing away around us that there are sometimes I'm concerned that I could be becoming almost desensitized to it. So before I get there, I want to just say thank you guys so much for joining me for the month of September. We have been doing the 21 minutes for 21 days in the September setup because we're trying to set up for the rest of the year. And so the challenge was to do something that gives you joy or helps restore your happiness for 21 minutes every day. And we were supposed to do a celebration on 9/21 at 21/21, which would have been 8/21. But life happened and death interrupted, and the whole planning around how to respond to a friend's mother's passing has definitely taken like center stage. And I was like, you know what, instead of me pushing and pressing, I'm going to be true to myself. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about SADtember. Today was actually supposed to be SLAYtember, and I was excited to talk about fashion and outfits and all these kind of things. But you know what? It's amazing. Death doesn't ask us at all whether or not we have time for him. Death does not ask, hey, is it okay now to disrupt your calendar, to break your heart, to possibly put you in trauma? I will never forget the death of my brother. It came so suddenly and so unexpectedly that it took my breath away. It literally took my breath away. And I was in my office. I will never forget. I was in my office and I was holding court with 3 of my summer interns. And I'm just talking. And my brother's wife keeps calling me. And I'm just like, I'm going to call her back. And I was like, excuse me for a minute. Let me get this call. And like her first words was, Hope, he's gone. My mind was like, what? He's gone? And so she begins I don't even remember the conversation. My mind was going so foggy, but I remember just saying, oh my God. And of course my interns quickly, like, something's wrong. They actually sort of cleared the room, go get another attorney. And that attorney was, such a great friend to me, Camille. And Camille came and like sort of held my hand while I'm listening. And I think at one point she picked up the phone and I was just numb. The death was interrupting everything. Like I was getting ready for a murder trial. I was, doing my thing with my interns. I was getting ready for this and that, but death just comes and it takes the wind out of the room. So sometimes, when you're trying to slay, when you're trying to put 2 points on the board, when you're trying to move, that there is a moment that your heart breaks because either you've lost a loved one or you have a friend or family member who's lost someone very close to them. And I want to talk tonight about, in this SADtember, how you respond when death interrupts. So even if you're seeing this on the replay, please put in the box if you have any advice. And so one thing, or even two things that you often respond to, or how you respond when death interrupts, especially in giving comfort to a friend. Now, the particular friend that my heart right now is going out to greatly is my friend Monique Yarborough. Her beautiful mother, Monica Vasses, was found unresponsive in bed a short time ago. It is believed that she probably just went on to be with the Lord in her sleep. And I have to tell you, is that not the best way possibly to pass from here to glory? Is to just go to sleep. And so we had just been talking. In fact, if you guys check out my first SADtember series, it was SADtember, and Monique was one of the participants in that. And I mentioned in the SADtember, which was about praying for each other, that literally since we've been praying together for a year dedicated, it made me feel closer to all of my friends' families. So like I'm praying not just for Monique, but I'm praying for her mother and her husband and her kids. And even though I may not have a direct conversation with any of them, because I'm praying for them, I feel closer. And Miss Vasses was a Facebook friend of mine. So not only did I have opportunity through Monique to love on her, I also got funny inbox messages, and sometimes she's the first to talk to me on my page about something I posted, and I just would be so tickled because I think it's safe to say, out of Crystal, myself, and Monique, I think that Monique's mother was had like a different flair as a character. Like she definitely was someone who's just so demonstrably just valuable. I just wanted to show you a picture of Monica Vasses. This is my friend Monique's mom, and Monique is to the left of her on the screen, and Miss Vasses is in the middle, and on the right of her is Nicole, Monique's sister. And I think she is such a wonderful person, and I really dedicate this show to Monique and honor her mother, Monica, because every person is a product of where they come from, right? The DNA of who I am comes directly from Chester and Carolyn. Mixed up together, it makes me a different person. But there's no way that I can love Monique and not so love the lively personality of Miss Vasses. But I wanted to talk about just ways that we can definitely be there when death interrupts, because with COVID restrictions on funerals, a number of things, often people do not feel like they have much opportunity or chance to be there for a friend. Many times there is, maybe the particular death happens at a time that you're not able to get away from work, right? Everybody doesn't have it like that, or I have some people who I know, they have like, children in their own unbreakable schedules. And are not able to be there like they want to be there. And I wanted to talk, and like I said, this is therapeutic for me too, talk about ways that we can possibly be there for each other when our friends pass away. This is a great picture, and I would only show this because it's on Facebook publicly. In the middle is Natalia, my friend Monique's oldest daughter, who just started college, and that's her grandmother to the I'm looking at the picture to the left of her. And her grandmother also gifted her with a car. And this past summer, she spent so many days in the car driving her grandmother around. This is a picture of Monique and Nicole and her mom when they were young. And you probably have noticed that my girlfriend is biracial. Her mother is Caucasian, and my Monique's mom is Monique's mom is Caucasian, and Monique's father was Black. And so that was interesting growing up, I'm sure, in the 70s with the interracial couple. But Miss Vasses worked in psychology and was so awesome in her understanding of inclusion that she actually, I believe she became the president of the Black Psychology Association. So I don't know if they didn't think she was Black or just was, or they thought she was Black, or she was an open opportunity kind of organization. But she's done so many amazing things, breakthrough even in having and raising biracial children. And this is a beautiful picture. This is a picture of Monique's mom with all of her grandchildren. And it's just so beautiful to me. That's Monique's mom, and these are Monique's kids, and this is Nicole's kids. And this was just recently taken. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about when death interrupts. But, one of the things that really, really, really I've been dealing with is like, gosh, Monique and I met over when we both lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and Crystal lives in Georgia. Now I'm in Florida. Monique lives in Dallas, Texas area. Her mom, 2.5 years ago, moved from California to Texas to be closer to family. Look how God does that. Like, she got to spend her last years around and surrounded by family. But Monique grew up in Oakland. Her mom's professional life and friends are in California. So the funeral's in California this weekend. And it's like, okay, I thought the funeral would be in Texas. Like, how can you be there for a friend when death interrupts? Especially if you may not able to go to the funeral, or for whatever reason you're not able to be there in the mix like you want to be. Because I'm from the country. When people pass away, you bring them food, you almost hold a country shiva with them. And for those who don't know what shiva or shiva is, it's a Jewish tradition. I think it's 7 days of mourning where they sit around and eat and talk about the deceased. You don't get to do like the old fashioned, I call it African inspired mourning circle. I even tried it when my brother died. Like, all my relatives on my dad's side was sort of like ascending upon the house, and my brother was such a jokester, and I just started like doing what jokingly I heard other maybe Nigerian families, like someone's like, oh, he was so good, oh, you just start crying. But I was being funny in honor of my brother, but the moment wasn't funny. I was just trying to like capture what is this mourning culture we have. Oh, thank you, Cynthia. Expected death shakes you. My brother's sport passed that way. Yeah. No, regardless, unexpected and expected deaths shake you. It's not like, oh, I knew you're going to die anyway. It's still sort of, as my friend Monique mentioned, it is like a physical reaction. So when death interrupts, how do you respond? How do you give grace? How do you share your love with people who are mourning? And so I want to hear from you guys. So write that down. I'm gonna just give you a few a few thoughts, and this may be for somebody, for somebody. And I don't know if I should do the do's or the don'ts first. And I may type as I go because I think this is really important. Maybe I'll start with the don'ts. The don'ts of The don'ts of mourning. So let's deal with the don'ts of mourning. Okay. Oops. Hold on. Let me try again because that's not correct. The don'ts of mourning. The don'ts of mourning. I would say the number one don'ts of mourning. Don't tell somebody that, oh, God need another angel. What kind of unbiblical crap is that? Someone's lost their father, and you're like, oh, God needed an angel. Someone's lost their newborn child. Oh, God wants us, but he has us regardless of we're on earth or in heaven. I know it's something that sounds sweet, but please don't do that. Um, don't say God needs another angel, or that God doesn't need us to be a spokesperson. We would be a terrible publicist. So please, let's not do the God needs another angel. So please don't do that. So we got that. And if you guys can think of a do or a don't of mourning, let me know down in the box. Don't say God needs another angel. I'm including that, even though it's true. Don't say God knows best. God knows best. And it's another well-meaning term. And unlike God needs another angel, and although God always is in control and knows best, there are different circumstances that people found themselves no longer here. There are people who commit suicide. There are people who overdose on drugs. There are people who, because of our own lifestyle choices, eating too many hamburgers, smoking, can come at diseases that take them out. And I'm not trying to get into a theological argument, but don't blame God. Don't feel like you have to be a publicist for God. And I understand why people say this, but God knows best brings no comfort to that mourning person, especially while they're mourning. Maybe later down the road, but you can think of positive things that may have come because of the death, whether it's reconciliation of the family, or maybe thank God if it was an accident that God still preserved the life of the wife or the children. But again, God doesn't need a publicist. It's offensive. My if my friend died of suicide, for someone to tell me God knows best, as if God planted in the mind of my friend to kill themselves. Just don't feel the need. Oh Lord, what happened? Family is hurting already. Let them yes, let them process it. Let them process it. I think we can be so uncomfortable with sadness, and especially if you're a person like me who loves to be upbeat, and you want to turn and frown upside down. You so quickly want to get to the good part. But the Bible says in the Beatitudes in Matthew, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So it's actually, they're blessed, right? Because God comes in and comforts, and there's no one that can comfort like God. Comfort like God. Another don't in mourning, I'm going to put it up there. Don't put people in heaven or hell. If you wait, maybe how should I say, don't put people in heaven or hell. I just think, well, unless you know them, the deceased, well, huh, you know the deceased well. I don't want you to say somebody's gone to hell because you know that they were terrible. So I would say in general, don't put people in heaven or hell unless you know the deceased was a believer. And if the deceased was not a believer, just leave it alone. We never know. We never know what people's last confession and thoughts were, and that's a pretty long one. I'm gonna read that while I talk. Don't put people in heaven or hell unless you know the deceased was a believer. And if the deceased was not, just leave it alone. We never know what people's last confession and thoughts were. In other words, if you know that a person professed Christ, it's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, they are now with the Lord, and leave it at that. Don't I think one of the weirdest situations I've ever been in is participating in a funeral. I was asked to sing in the funeral, and the funeral was at a funeral home. The young man was a producer. He was in his 40s. He was in a great bodily condition. So it was weird that he had a heart attack and passed away. And I did not know. And as a believer, it hurts me to say, I did not know where this man was with Jesus Christ. Okay. I didn't know if he was a Christian. Again, the funeral was at a funeral home. And I can tell from the family's response during the sermon that the man who was eulogizing him had no idea whether he was a Christian or not. The people who were doing the music for the opening hymns, the lady who came up, she's like, all right, now God, give God a praise. You need to give God a praise. Don't cry, give God a praise. He's in heaven. And I'm just like, what? Like, I knew enough about the circumstance to know. I knew a lot of circumstances to know that however they were presenting, that's not how that man would have wanted. Now, whether or not he was a Christian or he confessed Christ in the end, that's one thing. But you don't go into a total stranger family, have the opportunity to provide comfort. That's your goal, people, at a funeral and memorial, besides reminiscing on who that person was, hopefully the positive things, is to give the family comfort. Funeral is for the living, not the dead. And you can't make people praise to God, and you can't make people. Now, when I'm 120 and pass away, everybody, just know you're going to have to wear comfortable shoes because y'all going to be shouting all over the place. But that's me. That's my personality. You don't go to a funeral and assist and then try to make the situation not fit what you understand about the person. And if you don't know, just don't put people in heaven or hell. Leave it alone. Focus on the family. It was such an honor for me because I got to sing, and I didn't know what I was going to sing. And I looked up all these things to sing. And one of the things that I love, I was like, what do you tell people? And it is well. I love the story that connects to it as well, because the woman's son was dead, and she was met on the road, or she went ahead and met on the road because she was trying to get the prophet who would come and stay in her home. And they were asked, how is things? And she said, it is well. And the idea of comforting people, no matter what's happening, because you're on the other side of the grave, it is very much always the right thing to say. It is well. It may not feel well. You are going to do well. But let that not be the same as saying you will get over it, or any type of um any different statement that basically you're telling the person who's in mourning that the sun will rise, or that you'll find love again, to a woman who's lost her husband. Put your attention on your other children. You'll get over this. Like, it's important. You got to be really careful, because don't pretend that you know what that person is going through. Just because, and hear me when I say, you may have had the worst family friend death experiences. I can't think of, you may have had the worst. You may have even been traumatized because you saw someone get murdered. No matter what your experience is, it is your experience. You are not the expert of that person's pain or mourning. I've seen people experience horrific deaths unexpectedly, and they're able to move in a grace within months of the death in a way that I've seen people who lost a family member, and 5 years later they are still in deep mourning. They can't, they're on medication, they can't move. It is not up to us to decide, that someone will or won't get over. I understand what you mean. It may be true, but when you lose someone, you never get over it. You can be healed from the hurt, but you never get over it. I'm still amazed that I lost my friend Sharon last year of cancer. And some of you guys have been following me. You may remember, because I posted about her all the time. I was asking people to pray. I really believed that her healing was coming on this side of heaven. And when she passed away, I was just so shocked. And I was just like, it's still hard for me to call her husband. When I go to Atlanta, like this weekend, I went to a wedding with people from the studio that she ran and started. It was weird. I kept looking for her. There are times that I just cry thinking about that she's not here. And I'm not, I didn't know her from childhood. I didn't marry her. She wasn't my mom, but I just miss her so much. And and even though our friendship lasted the better of 7 years, or actually 6 years, for if somebody were to tell me I'll get over it, I would be so offended. I'd be so offended. I'll be so offended. And we don't want to offend. We want to give comfort. So I think that's enough of don'ts. You can imagine a lot of don'ts that are around there. Let me look at my comments. Yes, yes. It was their time. Save or not save, you don't want to hear that. Oh my goodness, it was their time. Okay, I may have to add that. That's a great don't. Do not say it was their time. Who are you? You don't know. It's sort of like another way of saying God knows best. All those things may be true, right? Because there's a time and a season for everyone. It says a time to die and a time to be born. But it almost disregards the pain that comes with that, right? Disregards the pain. And yes, we have to pray. And I want to talk a little bit about that as we go on to do's. And I'm sorry for the tempo of this show being so, much more measured and not as bubbly as typically my shows go. But I guess there's just sometimes that death interrupts, and there's just there's nothing you can do to change the fact that it's a somber occasion. Now, do's of mourning. I would say the do's of mourning is do feel sympathy. Let me say, do express sympathy, even if it's just saying, I'm sorry. Now, some people may think that that's weird, right? Because you didn't do anything to that person. But I find that when people pass away, especially people like me, right? I'm a lawyer. I deal with victims. Prior to that, I deal with, clients who may be facing a lot of time in prison. I deal with a lot of people in crisis. And, I want to fix them. I want to make them feel better. I want to give them relief. But sometimes, all that you can say is, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry that your mom died. I am so sorry to hear that. Why is that important? Especially if you're a person who likes to fix people and you get uncomfortable with sad things. Well, one, understand that we need sympathy. Everyone needs sympathy. I may not need your pity, but to take a moment and say, you know what? You are in pain. Even if the person's bopping around bopping around like, hoo hoo, hoo hoo. Yes, I'm getting ready for, we're going to praise the Lord, but it's okay to say, I'm really sorry. I know, I'm glad that you are in a good place, but I just want to let you know I'm sorry. It is okay to share that. Oh my gosh, it is. Thank you, Renee. Grief is love preserving. I love that. That's on one division, is love preserving. And let me tell you, to be able to do this next do is so important, because with the pandemic, I saw how powerful and how blessed I was to have this. And a lot of people during the pandemic, it's getting a little more open, but where you can, do give your presence. Do give your presence. Like during the pandemic, you had all these people, and we're still in it, but before the vaccination, right? You had all these people passing away, 52 years old, healthy, dying, and cannot have a funeral or in-person funeral. And it has to be graveside. A lot of people were, just said, we're going to have a memorial next year. It's now this year, which was last year's next year, right? The memorial still hasn't happened. Who knows what's going to happen in 2022? But I never realized how blessed I was that when my brother passed away, I got the gift of presence. I was overwhelmed with people's presence. And let me tell you, I should add to this, that the gift of presence before, during, and after the funeral. The reason why I want to say before, during, or after the funeral, a lot of times, um, we can't, because of whatever reason, be there for someone at the funeral. Do you realize at the funeral, many times people just, first of all, if it's your loved one who died and you're tremendously impacted, you don't even remember half the time who was there, who attended. And even though that person means a lot, who came, maybe they're a dear friend of yours or family member, truthfully, you don't care. You did not, like, this is not your sweet 16 party. This is not your wedding. I mean, they didn't want to be there. So you being there is good, but many times they don't even totally remember your being there. So I say before, during, and after the funeral, because I definitely experienced the blessing of people who was there when I first heard about the death. Even my coworker Camille Haddock, I have to give her a shout out. She held me down. I cried. I laughed. She's like, "What do I need to do?" My nephew, not my nephew, my cousin Lamar, who was definitely touched. He loved Corey. We were neighbors. He came. Did I call him, or his mom called him? Anyway, he came and got me and drove me to where did we go? My pastor's house. Like, just to have him there. I know he went to the funeral, and I took a picture with him, so I have proof. But I just needed someone there, right? And during the funeral, I was busy. My brain was clicking on all fours, because my brother, Corey, he would laugh at this now. He had officially like 4 funeral observances. He had a funeral in South Carolina. Then his body was flown to Florida. He had a wake. Then he had a funeral in Florida, and then he was flown back to South Carolina to be buried in Poly Island, South Carolina, and they had a burial service. My brother didn't go to funerals. He would be like, if he had to go, he would be sitting in the back of the church. So I imagine in heaven, he's like, "What are y'all doing?" But so during the funeral, I got to interact with a lot of people, and I was really, really blessed to see people. And I routinely told my friends, and I sincerely meant it, like, "Oh, thank you so much, but you don't have to come. Like, it's going to be so much." I knew I'll be going between states, and there was a lot of things going on, if you can imagine, because my brother died unexpectedly through an accident. And at the time, I really didn't know even how. There was just a lot happening, okay? But I do remember moments of looking up and seeing someone I didn't expect to see, or I knew it was a challenge for them to get there, or just I just in that moment needed to see them and didn't know that I needed to see them. So presence is important. Presence is important. And then after the funeral, I want to note this, particularly for those of you who find yourself like me, your friend or loved one who's going through, they live or the funeral's way across the country, and you're like, how can I get there? Da, 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 da. Don't you know they still need you? They need you after the food is gone, after the people go back to their lives. They still need you. I don't know about you, but I would say a year after my brother's death, I probably needed more presence of friends than right after he died, because I was still going through adrenaline. But I even now there are times I can cry my eyes out. It doesn't mean that I need someone there, but when someone gives me their gift of presence, it is so beautiful. So I want to encourage anyone who found themselves not being able to attend a memorial service, know that your friends still need you. Maybe this is a great time for you to like, okay, I need to plan a getaway. I was laughing with my girlfriend Monique because we've been struggling, myself and Crystal, with when are we going to do our next girls trip. And so now that her mother's passed away, she's like, don't worry, coming out here. Let's use that money for a good girls trip, like allow that person to tell you how your presence would best fit them and believe them. But it's also good when people are surprised, so give them your presence. It may be FaceTiming them. It may be just calling them, putting on your calendar a month after the funeral to call them and just describe some great memory, like give them your presence, even if you're not able to be there. Those type of things really, really, really blessed me. Um, really, really blessed me. You guys are giving some really good information. I wanted the next one I wanted to do, and I'm gonna give one more and then get to you guys' comments. One of my favorite things to do, and I used to, um, wait, how can I say? Okay, um, I do share stories to lift them, and I'm saying lift them, or let me say lift the morning. What do you do in mourning? Do share stories to lift. Maybe that's a better way of me saying it. Growing up being a preacher's kid, I was often finding myself at funerals. I mean, I think if I had a child now that I'm a minister, if I had a child, I would probably be a little bit less likely to drag them to all the funerals I saw, you know. Or maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. But it was always sort of weird for me to hear my dad, because he was like, we're going to so and so's funeral. And I'll go to the funeral, and it's, ooh, in the country, particularly in the South, it could be a great tearjerker, people grabbing on the caskets and woo, 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 woo. And, but then, like, we would get to the repast, and the food was always good. I hear my dad, like, at the table talking to the grieving widow or the grieving brother or whatever. And he would be just laughing and telling all these stories about the deceased, or telling the story about something that has to do with that person who passed or that person who's mourning. And I just thought it was so irreverent. I thought it was so irreverent. I was like, somebody's wife just died. Why are you making fun, basically, of the dead? And this is not for everybody, because especially if you're not a person who typically has a really good knack for stories, you may want to just think of something quickly, if that in fact is something you can think of. But you know what? As I got older, I understood it. And I even understood why those people loved to have my father around, because the person passed away, but they had a whole life, and that life was full of ups and downs. And sometimes the best way of mourning with someone is to share stories to lift, or to uplift, I should write. I'm just writing all this stuff, because that person, their last memory. I know some people don't even go to funerals because of one thing. They don't want that to be their last memory. But I tell you, if they had Chester Demps around, they wouldn't mind going, because it's not going to end with the casket going down in the grave. It's going to end eating and laughing about what was and how things might have been. And even with my friend Monique, and I dedicate this show to her mother Monica, I thought about her mom taking me, Crystal, and Monique out to see Bridges in Madison County, which is a love story, but also involves adultery. And we had just been fasting, and we were college students, and we were really zealous. And Miss Vasquez is from California. She's very super liberal. Like, you know, it was just, we were like in two different worlds. And I just went on and on and on. And I just like, oh my gosh, this woman has paid for our food, and I'm just insulting her by the entertainment she provided. Or even, I think I was laughing because, like I told you, my friend Monique's mom is my Facebook friend, and she comments and she sends stuff. And so September 3rd, right, just a few weeks ago, she sent me She Bangs by Ricky Martin. She Bangs video. Like, she was like, so like when I think of her, even as Monique and Nicole are preparing to celebrate her life with the funeral this weekend, I'm thinking about the mom who took me to see Bridges of Madison County and who sent me She Bangs, Ricky Martin. That, you know, me to share that with them, I know that they understood my heart and they loved it, you know. It's just an opportunity to encourage a person. But like I said, if this is not your ministry, if you're not a good storyteller, you may want to stay away from this. But it's okay to say something nice like, I remember when your mother paid for my school books. I remember when your brother picked me up when I fell off my bicycle. The stories don't have to be long, okay? But some good memory, right? Because that person who's in mourning is hurting, and it's good to be reminded. So let me get to some of my lovely, thank you guys for staying on. I really was not sure if I should do this show, even because this is not was not the tenor of my September programming, but I was like, you know what? It's my show. I can get as real as I want to. Okay, so Jennifer Bliss. Oh my goodness. Okay, so hi Jennifer. Thank you for being on there. Oh, I love this. Cynthia Henry, give your condolences and let them know you were praying for their strength during this time and the days to come. Come on now. And I know I have C. Renee as well as Jennifer on here who have experienced the death of parents. You guys let me know what type of things are the do's and don'ts that you may have experienced. But people need your prayers, you know, and they don't need it just when they hear about the death, but in days to come. They need your prayers during that first holiday, right? During that first Father's Day without your dad. They need your prayers. And if you're close enough and you understand them enough, because these are your friends, right? We're talking about, feel free to call them on that day. You don't have to be like, I'm calling you on this day because I felt like you would be depressed, and then get the person more sad. They may like, I forgot. Like, I remember one time someone called my mother on my brother's birthday and my mom hadn't remembered. And she's like, I was just calling because I knew you would be sad because it's Corey's birthday. And my mom was like, forgot that it was Corey's birthday. So now she's sad. But remember, you know, months later, they need you. Jennifer says, what helped me the most after my mother died was months later, my friends just reaching out to me to check on me. Yes, check on your friends. And you may think it's really small, but often, isn't it amazing, Jennifer? You could probably attest, right when you needed the encouragement the most, someone reached out to you, and it was such a beautiful thing. See, Renee, the gift of presence is so powerful. And I admit, I've won on that case, and sometimes I've lost. Sometimes as friends, we can undervalue that our presence would make a difference or that it's needed. So it's okay. When you know better, you do better. And like I said, sometimes you need to just put it in your calendar, because people go on with their lives, but your friend is still dealing, even if they're not saying outwardly. Another good thing to say to people who are grieving is to acknowledge that acknowledge their new normal. Their lives will never be the same again, but acknowledging that their normal is now something different helps. Ooh, Selah. You guys, the new normal. I remember when my friend Maya, I don't think she minds me sharing, when her father died a few years after her mother. And I had the opportunity to go to be with her during those times in Minnesota and Ohio. And what hit her, although she was an adult, and this is before she got married, is that she no longer had living parents. So, what is the common phrase for a person with no living parents? An orphan. And I remember, like, wow. And that sat with me. And I was like, but you're not an orphan. God is there. And I would try to, like, quickly, try to change the direction. But, it was nothing wrong with sitting in that space. And I do know later, I was like, you know who you are? You are an inheritor. You are an heiress also. And thank God for parents who are able to leave their children something. And you can say, I inherit, even if it's like a legacy of love, right? Everybody doesn't have that. But that new normal, let's not skip over it trying to get to the sunshine so quickly. See, Renee, when appropriate, find ways to help people laugh. Laughter is great medicine. The garment of praise. Come on now. Come on now. That same Maya, I told her she had to write a play about her mom's funeral, because even though she didn't find out half of the things that happened during our preparing for her mom's funeral, it was some hilarious stuff. That's why Black people have not just Black, that's why there's so many movies surrounding funerals, because everything hits the fan, good and bad, oh man. Monique and Nicole's mom always reminded me of my mom. Oh, Jennifer lost her. Jennifer, thank you. I didn't know that, but now that you say that, I could imagine. Looks a lot like Jennifer's mom. God bless her. May she rest in peace. Yes, Chandrika, thank you for your support. I'm like listening to the expert. Please give Monique and Nicole my regards. Yes, it's nothing wrong with like sharing. And let me just say, this probably should have been a don't. So how should I do? This is possibly a don't, but I don't know what the corrective. Can someone speak out there? Like, there is definitely a mourning tradition that's happened since Facebook and social media, is that people post about death of other people, or of course the dead person can't post about their own death. I hope that didn't offend anyone. So if you're posting about death, it's never your own, but you can have like a cousin posting about their cousin's mom's death, and they haven't yet talked to the child or the spouse, or what we would consider the closest living relative. They haven't asked them. Even yet, is it made public? Have you told all your brothers and sisters? You'll be surprised at how many people have told me they found out about a close relative's death through Facebook. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put that on the don't. I thought I was done with the don'ts. Here's a don't. Don't post deaths on. I don't know what we say. What we say? Don't be the first to post about a loved one's death. Don't be the first to post about a loved one's death until the closest of kin. Okay, this is sort of convoluted, but y'all hear my heart. So I'm just saying, here's one. Don't be the first to post about a loved one's death until the closest of kin does or give permission. Like you just don't. And if you have a question, ask, because here's sometimes what we do, and we may be well meaning. we really may be well meaning, we also get sort of a personal sense of attention that we may be craving by posting about really someone else's death that may not be as close to you. So you have to be careful, you know, especially in this blogger podcast world we live in. Sometimes people want to be the first news, the first, like almost like I want to gossip, but I do it in a form of prayer request. So this is a good don't when it comes to sickness, any type of thing. And you know, y'all may be saying, well, Hope, you post about people's death and you post about, and I may get it wrong. Most of the time I ask someone, can I post? Can I post about this? Can I post this prayer request? You know, a family member or loved one, close one. Can I post? Like, I got permission from my friends, my friend Sharon, when she was suffering. Could I post? She wanted me to post, you know, and could I post? You know, I filmed her burial. You know, my camera was one to be followed. Why? Because her husband asked me to. So don't be the first to post. That's definitely. And maybe like be careful and check your motives. It may be well meaning, but it could just come off like I need some attention. So I'm going to post about my coworker's mama's death, and I don't even talk to my coworker, but I'm gonna get a lot of people saying, you know, I'm so sorry, I send condolences to you. You don't know them, you know. So yeah, be careful with that. And let's say I got a lot of sidebar comments. Oh my goodness. Don't take family, especially parents, for granted. Oh my goodness. Selah on that. You know, the situation with Monique, and I don't think she minds me sharing, is that her mom came to live close to her. She helped direct that, and she lived in a retirement community with apartments, and you know, she had a social life and best friends. And I just think it's amazing that she got to spend a lot of time with her mother the last 2 years of her life, where they have been living separately for decades, right? She sees her mom, but there's nothing like that. And so don't take your family for granted. There are times, especially when I was at times in my ministry life, where I was just so consumed about the church I went to and the ministry. And it's like, you know, if there was a wedding that conflicted with New Year's Eve, I had the experience of getting on a plane and missing the wedding. It wasn't entirely my fault because the wedding was snowed in, so it was rescheduled, but I could not miss New Year's with my church. I'm not saying that that's always the wrong decision, but now I don't have that uncle or aunt who got married later in life. And I wish I would have was at their funeral. I couldn't even tell you what our New Year's Eve theme was. So your parents, your loved ones, you know, I got all the professionals on here. Do pray, do reach out, do respect that grief comes in unexpected moments, do share memories. I love that. Amen to that. Amen to that. Wow. Shandrika Shell, that happened to me last month. I found out my stepmom passed on Facebook. I was devastated. You guys, do you even know that, like, one reason why they often don't release the names of the people who died in an accident? Why do they say they are still trying to reach the next of kin? I wish there was some regulatory situation that people were like, don't post until we tell you. I'm so sorry, Chandrika, you had to find out that way. And I can say that it does work sometimes the opposite. Not to get super deep detailed, because God has done so much to heal that chasm. But my brother's middle son, we had lost connection with, and they moved and didn't forward information. And it was actually Facebook that attached itself to a distant cousin who called her like, aren't you blah 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 with Corey Demps? I see that I think she told her that he was in an accident. And she called and found out he passed away. So it does sometimes work, but imagine, you know, when I say it works, it may help aid in getting people to know, but I'm so sorry, Sandrika. No one should ever find out about it like that. Oh man. Oh, okay. I see you. Morning don'ts. Jennifer says, do not immediately vent about your mom's passing to a person that just lost theirs. Oh, come on now. Talk about it. This is like basic counseling 101. When you are in pain, don't take the opportunity in finding someone else in pain to share your pain, where the call goes from, girl, I'm so sorry that you lost your mom to cancer. You know, my mom died of cancer and I like gave up my life. And all of a sudden it turns into something about you. I even found that, you know, sometimes, and I'm not talking about being fake and strong, like in that way, but I do think it's helpful to like get yourself together before you start trying to administer love on someone else. So if I'm coming up to a person or calling them, and it's okay, I think it's also helpful for that person to know that you were touched, but I can't talk because I'm still crying and I'm trying to call you to comfort. Maybe I need to hug myself and call another friend and get myself together. But that's a really big don't. Again, no matter what you've gone through, you don't know what that person's going through. Okay. So don't turn into a session about yourself. A morning do watch their body language to see if they even want to talk to you. You may feel compelled because you hurt for them so much. Again, check your motives. You may feel compelled because you hurt for them so much, but they may have nothing to share. And there's nothing wrong with saying there are no words. I know I say that often. There are three things I often say. I am so sorry. There really are no words that would ever be enough. I am here for you, or I have you close to my heart, or I pray for you. Those three things are usually what I say, if nothing at all. And if I call them, I'll always remind them, no need to call me back. I know you have a lot going on. Like no pressure on them, right? So no even pressure on them for you to have a conversation. And if you're a person going through that, I would suggest, especially if you're a person going through the death of someone and someone is trying to press you for information to talk, you got to maybe just go ahead and get some rote responses like, I'm so appreciate your call. Right now, we're just focusing on the funeral. I don't really have anything else to share. Redirect. Oh man. Oh, I'm so glad you knew that person so well. Yeah, right now I just don't have the energy to talk about it, but I appreciate you showing concern. Like people understand, and sometimes you're helping them because they catch themselves. But watch their body language, watch what they do and don't say. And I know it's hard, but unless you're super close, and like, Monique, whose mother passed, she's one of my best friends. That would be stupid for me not to sort of say, well, what did she pass of? Now, I didn't ask that question. I found out later, but don't hear that someone passed away and your first question, even if you are close to them, is how they die. Like, really? My mother used to say how they die. She's like this. In other words, her eyes are open. Everybody dies with it. Anyway, so be careful. Sometimes people just want to be left alone. My nephew has a very interesting story about that, because when his father died, my brother, it's like he was waiting for this opportunity to really let go in emotions. And every time he went to cry, someone would come up to him and was like, oh, Breon, don't cry. It's going to be okay. He said after the third or fourth time, he was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not going to. Yeah, like another don't is telling someone don't cry. What kind of mess is that? I'm like, cry as much as you need to. Pat them if you want to. Even be careful about giving someone a tissue, because that may signal like, get yourself together. You're a mess, Read body language. Okay, I have another don't for Jennifer. Thank you so much. Y'all are co-hosting just from afar. Morning don'ts. do not do a Facebook Live about mourning without your earrings, eyeshadow, and braid. Look at this fabulous. Thank you, honey. I was trying to counterbalance the sadness of SADtember. Let me tell you, here's a do, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Here's a do. Do take something bright to a funeral, or do carry. Let's see, carry a bright item that brings you joy to a funeral. Now, this is as much about you as it is the person who's mourning. So many times funerals are all black. In the Pentecostal church, they're often all white. Regardless, it's often super bland, except for the beautiful flowers. And sometimes there is a moment where the tears and the sorrow is overwhelming. So whether or not I'm the person who's personally going through the death of someone personal, or I'm there to support someone I love who's going through it, it's nothing for me to bring a bright pink purse, green purse, a sparkly ring, a scarf, something that when that overwhelming melancholy comes in, that I hold on to that ring, or I look at that purse makes me smile. That is like to sort of settle myself, because the one thing I don't want to do, especially when I'm attending the friends, parent, or family member's funeral, like not my friend's funeral, but their loved one's funeral, I do not want to bring attention to myself. Now, my friend, cry, slide on the floor, do whatever you need to do, but it shouldn't be like, well, who that chocolate BBW in the back who's like going to town with the tears? It should not be. But also, I just find that sometimes just that bright thing also is a distractor to other people, right? Or to like give someone a beautifully colored handkerchief to cry on and let them keep it. And so that's just, that's just free. Man, you guys have gotten some really, really good, really good ideas from this. And I hate that some of us, like Renee and Jennifer, have had the experience to give us these ideas, because they have also experienced death in a way that has hurt. Oh my gosh, morning dews, you got one more to me, Jennifer. I love it. Do remember and share funny stories about the dearly departed. I'm sure that Tom Hanks' comments at Michael Clark's Duncan's funeral warmed many hearts and helped celebrate his life. Yes, here's the link. Thank you for putting that down there. Now, that was one of my first dues, is to share a story to uplift. When I tell you, at my brother's funeral, one of his best friends from growing up shared how he was spending the night at our house as kids during a fast. Our family was on a fast, so none of us was supposed to be eating, period. And he and my brother snuck away to cook hot dogs in the microwave. And my dad came into the kitchen like, "What y'all doing?" And they're all scared. And he was like, "Make me what?" And the whole place erupted in laughter, because if you know my brother, skirting around the rules of church life was definitely something he did. So yes, remember sharing funny stories to the dearly departed. They want to hear those things, I could sure tell you how many times I've gone to a funeral of a person I didn't know well. It could even be a family member who I didn't personally know everything about them, or I didn't know, but hey, that's Aunt so-and-so. And to just read their tremendous contribution, to see people who show up and speak on them. And it's like, whoa, can you be inspired by going to a funeral? You can, actually. Can you remind? Because I was going to say, the fourth thing I often say when someone passes, especially when it's a mother or a father, is that, their legacy lives in you. You're great, so they must have been great. It doesn't matter what wrong they did in life, or even what was right, but there was something about their DNA that contributed to your success, or they're raising you if you're adopted or whatever, because that person means a lot and they are wonderful and blessed. Jennifer, morning don'ts. Do not feel bad because your eyeshadow game doesn't compare with those. All right, Jennifer, thank you so much. I'm glad you noticed because this was definitely a quickie job. Yes, look beat up from the feet up at funerals, okay, people? Unless it's your grieving or your family's the one personally grieving, go in there looking beautiful, refreshed, be ready to serve. Be ready to serve. So do serve the person who is in mourning in the way they want to be served. And let me tell you, one of the things I've had to learn, and I'm still learning, is serve people the way they want to be served. Because we may have a way we serve, right? You ahead of the usher board, so the way you serve in every situation is you want to help the crowd. Well, maybe they don't need the crowd help. Maybe they just need you to sit down and smile and or whatever. Be of use if you can, but remember your presence is the most important to your friend, whether before, during, or after the funeral, whether in person or in a phone call, um, in a FaceTime, in a video. And I just want to say, as I end my show today, is that I absolutely love my friends and I love their families. The ones I know well as an extension, and the ones I don't. And my heart goes out to Monique and Nicole, who I've known Nicole since I was in college and she was in high school, and Monique since my sophomore year. And I've seen them walk through the death of their father and now the death of their mother. And I so admire the fact that they've found love and got married and have kids and great careers. But I don't know what it is to not have my parents. I'm definitely blessed. And I know the reality is that one day when they turn 120, they're not going to be here anymore. And I can't imagine, even when they've lived a long, beautiful life as their parents have lived, how they feel in this moment. But I just want you to know that I love you. I am here every time I hear She Bangs by Ricky Martin. I'm going to smile and think of Monica Vasquez. And I know that this weekend celebration, I pray that you are embraced by your family and the friends that loved your mom, and that you're reminded of not just how special she was to you, but how she impacted the world. I love you guys. I love you so much. And I'm just hoping that this blesses somebody, that because sometimes we just don't know what to do or say. It means a lot to your family and your friends to have moments to just consider. If anything, I love what C. Renee said, don't take your family for granted and don't take your friends for granted. People are dropping off or having their life severely be interrupted by death. So it's okay sometimes to take a sober moment of sadness and embrace the new normal. And whether you can attend the funeral or just take them out on a girls' trip or remind yourself to call them a month to the date of their loved one's death, please give them your presence. I love you guys. This is Hope More, and I'll see you next Wednesday. All right. Mwah, 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 mwah.